Hey everyone, it's time for another Alien Frontier Devlog. It's been a little while since the last update, but I'm gearing back up after a nice long holiday break. I spent the last little while tidying up the demo and making incremental fixes and changes, but I've just recently introduced a brand new character in the game. Meet the Desperado, and she's...
Pretty good.
So let's spend some time doing a deep dive into the process and workflow that led to the creation of a brand new playable character. Adding a playable character to a roguelike is a significant task. At launch, the plan is to have 6 different characters, so each one is incredibly important. When making a big addition like this to the game, I always start with a high-level design. So what does high level mean? That means instead of starting with a specific detail or idea of a mechanic, you build the concept from the broader goals, which often starts with answering some important questions. In the case of making a playable character, these were the high level questions I started with. Firstly, what is the intended playstyle? I wanted each character to encourage a specific playstyle in my game. The last thing I want is all my characters to play exactly the same with only minor stat differences. So in this case, I looked at my previous characters. First, there's the Standard, who is the starting class. The Standard is a bit of a mid-range, decent in everything, but not too specialized character. He's the perfect starter and player's introduction into the game mechanics. The other character so far is the Armored, who is a more defensive, tanky character. He trades offensive ability for HP and survivability. You can learn more about him in a previous devlog, actually. So I looked at what I currently have, and I wanted to add something a bit different. I decided to go with a character that was high offense, high mobility, but also high risk. A character that can deal high damage in short bursts, but must choose carefully when to strike. Okay, so that's decided. The next high-level question is, what is the theme I want to convey? By theme, I'm talking about the appearance, style, and general player experience when using this character. Once again, I looked at my previous characters. 2 male characters with a sturdy Western vibe. I needed to keep the overall sci-fi, Western, Victorian vibe, but I really wanted to add a female playable character for variety. Thinking about the fast-paced, high-damage gameplay I wanted, I realized that the theme of a fast-shooting gunslinger would be the perfect fit. So I did a ton of research by looking at other games, movies, comics, and everything else for awesome references before I started crafting the character. With those general goals in place, I had to start implementing things. I like to start with the primary weapon. In Alien Frontier, every class has the same starting weapon, though basic stats such as damage, rate of fire, range, and more can have different tunings. Since I wanted to create a fast shooting character, I experimented with drastically increasing the rate of fire, but at the cost of range and individual damage. Tying into the gunslinger theme, I also decided to create dual weapons, which really emphasize this run and gun style character. It's important for each character to feel noticeably distinct from a gameplay perspective, and the fast shooting dual guns does just that. Players need to get very close to use them, and each shot on its own isn't very strong. However, the high rate of fire synergizes really well with chance-based upgrades, such as ones that have a chance to create a status effect on every hit, such as burn. Each shot is a dice to roll, and the gunslinger has a lot of dice. Next up was the Sidearm, and I wanted to try something really different. With such a hit-and-run style, I experimented with making the weapon that doubled as a teleporter, a bit like how Tracer works in Overwatch. The general idea was you fired one projectile and it deals damage but stays in the world, and then the next time you fire the weapon, it instead teleports you to the projectile location. After this, the teleport location is removed and the cooldown begins. I really liked this, and it was a unique take on the other character sidearms, which are big area of effect missiles and a long-range sniper. So I decided to work on making it readable. I set up a nice particle effect that looked a bit like the player's outline or shadow, so to speak. Then I updated the crosshair to indicate the state, whether you could teleport or whether you could deploy. Once this was all done, I started testing it in a map that wasn't my little test gym that you see here. And then I realized that it was way too complicated. I really enjoyed the mechanic on paper, and it worked well in an isolated area, but trying to swap between the weapon and the teleporter was just way too much to juggle in an actual combat encounter. It just felt clunky and frankly overwhelming. So I went back to the drawing board and let my high-level goals inform the design. So remember how I said gameplay-wise I wanted the character to feel very run and gun? That means you have to get up close to deal damage. So stuff like sniper rifles don't really make sense for this character. After some more brainstorming, I eventually arrived at a new idea: the orb. This sidearm is a very slow-moving, large energy orb which passes through all geometry and deals large amounts of damage to anything it touches until it eventually disappears. Unlike last time, I decided to quickly prototype it first instead of polishing it. In gameplay, it immediately stood out as unique. It was quite effective as a high damage but extremely close range weapon. Due to its slow speed, the player needs to get quite close to deploy it, which really reinforces that run and gun style. I put a long cooldown on the weapon, meaning players need to choose wisely when to use it, and one of the upsides of this is that it provides a little extra depth for skilled players. It's a bit wasteful to use this on a single enemy, but you can use it in a tight cluster of enemies, which deals massive damage. That's a big risk, however, so skilled players are rewarded for using it. That's the sort of depth I'm trying to go for. And then finally, I wanted to create another big, high offense ultimate ability for the character. I wanted to do something that could really disrupt the battlefield, but had a very long cooldown. I decided to prototype a missile flurry, which was an attack that spawned dozens and dozens of homing missiles. I prototyped it quickly, and while cool, it needed some tuning. The first iteration was a bit much. So I tuned it down a little bit, and the end result was an ability that was super effective and, most importantly, pretty cool. And let's be honest, the coolness factor definitely shouldn't be ignored. I spent the next little time fixing up bugs, playtesting, and tuning, and when I was finally satisfied, I added the character to the build, which was an incredibly exciting feeling. As a matter of fact, I'm so excited for the character that I decided to YOLO it and add her to the demo as well. Yep, I just hot swapped the Ironclad with the Desperado, so if you download the demo, you'll have a chance to unlock her and see how the game plays with such a different character. So that's it for now. I can't seem to leave the demo behind, but I'm going to start ramping up more work on content for the early access launch, so I'll provide a future update further down the line. It's time for more enemies, biomes, and secrets to uncover. As for now, feel free to check out the game's Steam page to see the new edition in the demo, and if you like what you've seen, a wish list of the game would be a massive help. Alright, take it easy everyone.